Okay. All right. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Play It Painted Live. Here we go again. Hopefully, this time we can get this to work a little bit better. I'm having some serious issues with my laptop right now, and I don't know. It could explain. Wait. Let's. Um. Um. Wow. It's doing all kinds of weird stuff. Okay. Okay. I think we're at the right thing. Let's see if we can. Okay, we're back. But that's a lot of work. Whoa. Can we just understand why this has to be such a. Don't do it. Don't close my window. Okay. Let's see if I can get this to. There we go. Oh, thank God for you. I was numbing over here listening to Will I Am Being Stupid during an interview while I finished painting some torches. Are you watching a Will I Am interview? That's the real question. I don't know. Okay, let's see if this actually works. So, okay, so again, here's what I was working on last time, or not last time, last night. Ozymandias, and uh, he, for being such a static model, he is pretty dang cool. Like his whole, I like the whole getup. I think he's awesome. He's a really cool character. I got into some really cool discussions with a friend of mine last week about Ozymandias and about the greater moral question of Watchmen. She and I kind of we kind of, I guess, agree that we see his point. Like we see, I know that he is considered by people to be the villain in the whole thing. Uh, but I don't know, man. I don't know. And we'll get into that a little bit tonight. He's so dumb I can't help myself. There's an abundance. There's an overabundance of dumb. Uh, the celebrity world, but in the internet in general. So, okay. So right now I'm working on Rogue. We picked her back up again. And this is a project that just won't die. It's just going to sit on my desk forever and ever and ever, and I'm going to paint through it super slowly. But thanks for that, David. Yeah, I had so much fun painting Ozymandias that he's sort of pulling me back into painting the night models again. But right now, and I'm actually using the camera to figure this out. Like the face looks good when I just look at her with my naked eye, but it's not so good when I'm doing this. See, that eye is definitely bigger than the other one, and it's darker. The makeup is darker. I'm just trying to shape the eyes so that they kind of match. And I think, unfortunately, what I'm going to have to do to get this face to work is I might actually have to. I may have to just paint it. Um, essentially, just bring it all the way back in. Right? So that's what I'll do. I'll just Bring it all the way back to there. And see if it looks any better or worse or what. So I think I did a pretty good job on the Ozymandias face. May not necessarily be helping me here with Rogue. Let's have a look. Okay, so you can see here on screen, she didn't look bad, but I'm gonna bring her all the way up here, like right next to the camera. Bring it into focus. You can see the issue there. That pupil is way too big on color, actually. It just needs to be lighter, or I need to make the other pupil darker. The other pupil looks pretty good. But let's try making the other pupil darker and see what happens. That might be too dark. Okay, so if I go, now it looks okay. The other pupil looks okay, but now you can see, yeah, I totally screwed up that other eye. So it's just way too big. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'll reframe the other eye, smaller, and then I'll cut the skin color back around it. Whoa, and then screw up the whole thing. These Knight models, their eyes are so, I mean, they're almost to scale, and you don't want that. Like, that's not a good thing, because that makes it super hard for you to paint them. All right. Haven't had the chance to catch up on other videos yet. Are you playing Marvel Universe game, or is this a painting project? This is just a painting project. Do not intend on playing the Marvel game primarily because it's been discontinued, or it's no longer licensed. So, the game will slowly die. That's one major reason. Another reason is that I don't know, Knight models. The Knight models rules are not. They're not grabbing me. They're not. I love the characters. I love the properties that they have, but the rules for these games are not quite keeping me interested. That and the casting on these older kits is, I will bitch about that all day long. Just not a thing for me. Wow, and I'm having like the worst time trying to get these eyes to work. Whoa, there's another mistake there. Like, too big. Where did my focus just go way out of whack? Okay, been mixing with the DC and some of the unofficial models. That's cool. I mean, the DC rules seem to be okay. The Batman rules are meh, in my opinion. They're not great. They're not terrible, but they're not great. And so kind of lost interest with that. And with Guild Ball and Relic Knights, those are right now. Those are at least keeping my interest enough to where that's what I'm reaching for, and not so much Batman. Oh, cool. Yeah, I heard that the DC game is fairly simple, and I'm okay with simple. Simple's okay. Um, Sometimes simple can be bad. Like if we're talking about, a single D6 system, like Batman has a bunch of rolls that are just single D6 rolls. I hate with a passion. I hate those types of games. Those are not. I just don't consider them fun. I don't consider doing all these things, and then you need a 4, and then you don't get your 4. You've thoroughly outplayed somebody, and it still comes down to essentially, you know, statistics or a probability game that boils down to about, you know, 18%. It's just not. I don't know. That said, I will say I love Blood Bowl. Like right in the same breath, I'm going to condemn single D6 crucial role games. Blood Bowl, I think, was able to turn that thing and make it horrifying enough to make it an entertaining game. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a single D6 roll, and you're probably going to freak out over the result, but you kind of play for that. It's actually they've successfully been able to make that like part of the game, the experience of that game. Okay, it's not bad. Batman seems a little kludgy for me. Neither system is as elegant as Guild Ball. Yeah, Guild Ball is a very slick system, and I love Guild Ball. It's almost a double-edged sword, though, because I think I've called this out a few times about Guild Ball. Bear in mind I am a pundit, so I definitely have a positive game. Um, Guild Ball is such a good system that it can draw a lot of hyper competitive people to it. And while I don't mind the odd competition, it's not what really floats my boat most of the time. That's looking okay. Looks like I need to just clean up that back corner of the eye and I should be okay. This back corner here. Right? That back corner there. You can always, yeah. So I'm going to need the skin, which is cadmium skin. And the skin here too. Bring this all the way down. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Let's start color blocking her. Her eyes aren't fantastic, but they're gonna do. So we're gonna work on the yellows and the greens. Am I doing the yellows right? Or is that green? I don't know. Oh, that part's yellow too. She's got yellow going up half her butt, the middle part of her butt. My first torch flames came out pretty beast. Got my master airbrush kit with a compressor so I can be awesome like you. Thanks, man. It's, you know, it's not the best equipment. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to pretend like it is. It's not the best equipment, but for a beginner and for somebody that you're aware of how badly you treat things at times, or at least I am aware of how badly I treat things at times, it makes sense. So she kind of has this yellow portion here, which I did not realize that was a thing. I don't know. I don't stare at X-Men enough to know whose booty is yellow and whose is not. Apparently, Rogue has a yellow sort of thing here running down her booty. Okay, I'll just paint in. I'm just going to paint in a little more yellow here. Yeah, her eye is not great. I'll just keep working on it. I mean, this isn't a specific game piece. It's just a for fun piece. So I was thinking I might use her for a guild mall model I don't like the look of, but I can't think of a model right now, so I currently have no use for her. All right, let's get some green down. And you need a fairly jovial green here for Rogue. She kind of has a, my greens are either way too light or too dark. I just need a nice flat green. And it doesn't look like I have one. Let's try this. Let's try this intermediate green. That might, it just has to be bright like that. Let's try the bright green. Let's try it. What's the worst that can happen, right? Looks terrible? That's fine. Terrible. Like, yeah, even the studio art here on her, not great. Where's the, oops, I don't want to do that. Cyclops, Wolverine, Rogue. Like her eye is sculpted kind of weird. So there's that. Yeah, her eye is sculpted kind of weird. And we didn't do her lips. That's okay. Let's just do the green. Did I do the lips? Oh, I did a little bit. They're really pink. Okay. Is deep green, but to me it looks just like kind of like a fairly basic green. Doesn't look particularly deep to me. I mean, it's high chroma. You could call it high chroma green, I suppose. All right. And I'm going to keep this little card here so I can see. Yeah, so all of this, basically all this here is green. And it seems to be the right green. But if I, at least get her color blocked, that might be enough encouragement to actually finish working on her. Might be. I don't know for sure. No promises. I don't know if... I just feel so burned out on this whole project because, one, the assembly was not very good. while the sculpts are good, the casting has left a bunch of flash lines and burr and mold lines and just gunk on it to where it's like, man, even if I do a good paint job, there's going to be something that I didn't clean up enough or wasn't able, you're just not even physically capable of cleaning. And it's still going to look bad. So this is an extreme example, but I'm going to use it here just to kind of drive the point home. But it's like when you have a model that has a mold line down its face, and the mold line isn't a result of oh well, I have to bring this in a little bit more. The mold line isn't a result of just flash from some spillover filling the mold. The mold line is from the mold slipping, and so the whole face is misaligned. It would be like that. It'd be like seeing that on a miniature, understanding you can't really fix it, and then giving up on painting the miniature. That's how this feels sometimes. Okay, so we got that. I feel like it's fine. This green seems correct. Worst case scenario, if I can't find a use for her, you can always sell the mini. Night model I've been going for a fair bit. Loki and Thanos have been going for stupid prices. That's cool. I mean, yeah, my goal is to paint all the X-Men. Not all of them, but the starter X-Men kit. I painted Colossus before. You guys have seen that. He's still hanging out here on my desk. You could probably use a touch-up in his eye. I mean, he hasn't even been sealed yet. Need to be a little more prominent. He doesn't look bad. He just doesn't look particularly great. And so he didn't turn out as well as I had hoped he would, and therefore like, well, what's that? That line doesn't even fit properly. So yeah, there's a horrible. Oh my gosh. There are some really horrible lines on this miniature. Like right there, I tried to fill that, in fact, and it's just not looking good. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just give these guys a fairly basic but decent looking paint job and just move them off. And if they sell for, $5 above what I paid for them, then that's fine. This just does not look very good. Hey, what's up, Blade Wolf? Welcome to the feed. Yeah. It just doesn't look very good. When it's super disheartening when you have this sculpt. This is a really good sculpt. Right? Like, this is Rogue. I love this sculpt. It's fantastic. Oh. I'm dumb. Why did I paint her arms flesh color? We'll fix that. So you have this really cool sculpt, but the casting was so poor that there's just a number of things that you absolutely can't fix. And so you're forced to try to paint this really what, you can tell from the sculpt should have been a really cool model, but because they can't cast worth a damn, it is now a fairly subpar / mediocre miniature. And that makes me sad. I'm just gonna bring that green all the way up to the hilt there. See, there's like a giant giant mold line there. And like, why would Rogue have bare forearms? Kind of a bad idea. Maybe it's a trap, like, enemies that would grab her by the wrist or by the forearm, they're going to succumb to her power. Okay. So she's looking okay. Again, nothing really to write home about. Okay, I need kind of a dusky to be the jacket. And this russet brown doesn't look bad. It's just too light. So I'm gonna mix my brown. So I'm gonna go russet brown, and I'm gonna add a little medium gray to it. Make it a little flatter brown. It really didn't look like they did a whole lot to the jacket. It's just a Jim Lee design. Everybody gets rolled up sleeves. I hadn't really thought of it that way until you pointed it out. That's funny. Yeah. But yeah, I have, the problem right now is I have these projects on my desk, X-Men being one of them, that I just can't be bothered to finish right now. They're just not interesting enough for me to invest the time to complete. Or, something happened along the way to dishearten me. Like those faux clear, those translucents. I have a translucent Dark Carnival set that I painted to show off some of the translucent. And it worked, sort of. I still have a bunch of them that are covered with mask that need to be like scraped out. But so it worked in a sense. It doesn't look good. I'll show you an example. And this guy's covered in dust, so he's probably going to look really strange on camera. This is really weird that okay, so the jacket kind of has a white inliner. And that's a really inconvenient color here, because it's looking like I didn't finish the model. Like that inline, that liner should be a different color to make it look like, that I was able to paint the entire miniature. I'm just looking at this mess going, nailed it. But doing the color blocking should at least encourage me to finish the model. And if I'm encouraged to finish this model, then I can finish Cyclops and Wolverine. Okay, for the brown hair, it's more of a red color, so I'm going to use this heavy sienna. So many games to choose in life, but which one to go into? Yeah, I'm set. I consider myself to be set for miniature games. Like I have for most of my gaming, if I want to play a good tight game with a small amount of miniatures and a good rule set, super fun, obviously it's going to be Guild Ball for me. If I'm going for theme and aesthetics, then it's going to be, I see. Then it's going to be Relic Knights for me because I really like the anime theme and the aesthetic there. If if I'm, if I want to play something more fantasy based, maybe a little more, um, but more warfare focused, then it's going to be Wrath of Kings. And then, if I want to play, what else am I playing? Wrath of Kings, Guild Ball. And then I also have Malifaux, M2E that I'm playing mainly for the nostalgia factor, but also um, because uh, my friend really wanted to play again. So I picked it up for my friend because he plays everything that I want to play, and it's only fair for me to, return the favor. Keep looking at Wild West Exodus, Malifaux, Wrath of Kings, and Bushido. Yeah, Cameron had been trying to get me into Bushido. I am really intrigued by that game. But, as with all these games, there's always that fear like, another system. Should I pick up another? And if you can keep getting yourself to say no for enough reasons, you get to a point where you're just kind of numb on the no. And suddenly it doesn't matter that much to you. So, is it a bummer that I don't play Bushido? Probably, because it looks like a really super good game. But, one, the only place that carries Bushido is down in San Diego, and they don't carry the whole range. They only carry a few sets, none of which happen to be the factions that I'm interested in. So there's that. So there's, the lack of player base is an answer. I mean, back in my more militant push gaming days, that would not be a good enough answer for me. I would just get out and promote the game. But I can't do that anymore, Two-time daddy can't do that now. That is no longer an option available to me. So, oh man. Okay. So you can see she's coming along. Let's try to get some focus here. That's pretty good. Okay. So she doesn't look too bad. I need to paint this yellow out a little bit and clean it up. Because I think I've made it too narrow here across the chest. And with this type of detail, it's easy to do stuff like that. Right? And she has green. Gotcha. So yellow booties, green detail for the wraps around said booties. And then she kind of has, according to this, she kind of has like a silver waist thing on. Wrath of Kings is a rad game. I'm a fan. I like Wrath of Kings quite a bit. Let's do, here's what we're just going to take some armor wash and just hit the belt because I'm super lazy like that. Right? Can't actually get to focus much. Her top looks a little skewed in the yellow line. Yeah, I don't know. So I'll just do this number. Okay. All right, so let's make a glaze out of a deeper yellow. So I'm going to take like this heavy gold brown, and I'll make a glaze out of it. So I can get underneath, the cleavage and all that other stuff. Have enough control to where I can keep the open time the way I want it. Okay. So we're just going to make ourselves a little glaze here. And this is going to be mostly an underglaze. So let me show you how this works. So I'm gonna pull most of that right down the length of the yellow, but really focus on concentrating it in the crevices and the undersides of the model. Wow, and I can see right now that none of that is showing up on camera. Although you can see a little bit there. But none of that really is showing up on camera. So we're just gonna woo. So anyways, let's talk Ozymandias, since I kind of brought that up a little earlier. So, like I said, when I first saw Watchmen, the movie, I did not read the graphic novel, by the way. So take this for what it's worth. I know there are differences between the movie and the graphic novel, but for purposes of this little discussion, I will only be referring to the movie. Okay, so anyways, when I first saw the movie, uh, and I was trying to figure out, okay, where is this going? You get around to the end. Okay, it's it's Vight's fault. Let's go confront Adrian. They go and do that. By the way, spoilers, guys, spoilers for those of you who have never seen the Watchmen movie or read the graphic novel. Be forewarned, I'm just going to be talking about it with basically the entire spoiler of the whole thing. Okay, so anyways, so all this stuff is going down. A little while to dry, so let's just really quickly get some yellow shading on Wolverine. And they go and they confront him, and and then Vight's like, okay, well, I did that on purpose, and basically my heinous lie and my own machinations and all that stuff has million people, but it has essentially brought peace to the world. So he brought about world peace by fighting mankind against what they considered to be a formidable enemy, like a again seriously, and it's going to require the cooperation of the world. So in other words, we pulled together in a crisis, right? So the cooperation of the entire world power structure, meaning, oh wow, and I didn't even, meaning the U.S., Russia, Germany, Japan, China, all the major world powers banding together and saying, okay, we got to protect ourselves from whatever this threat is. And he makes the threat out to be, in the movie, he makes the threat out to be Dr. Manhattan. I do realize he manifests a different threat in the book. But anyway, so, they find out what Ozymandias has done, that he's manipulated a series of events, this entire strange plot line, in order to kill millions of people, secure world peace. And so, the different characters, the other characters in Watchmen, kind of react differently to this, depending on where their standing is, right? So, if you're Rorschach, then the whole thing is a massive, massive crime, because there really is only justice and injustice in his eyes. And truth is the higher power, and he will be unflinching no matter what. He will be unflinching about his commitment to truth. Then you have Night Owl, who is basically on the same side as Rorschach, but Rorschach points out, hey, the difference between you and me, Night Owl, is I never compromise, even in the face of Armageddon. His own words, I never compromise, right? So Night Owl Night Owl kind of gets clowned as, your Boy Scout antics really haven't done anything for the world, which was a bit harsh, but also quite true. I thought that was kind of cool. So I would say most of the audience is going to be more along, the Night Owl. He's definitely the more moderate of the two that are on the side of truth. Whereas Rorschach, and I think even more audience members, less than Night Owl, but more than Ozymandias, would side with Rorschach and say, no, truth is the ultimate goal here, and so we need to be considering truth. And then you have Ozymandias, clearly, who's on the other side of that, saying, no, it doesn't matter. Not it's peace. It's it's a distorted peace, but nonetheless it's peace. And he's saying the ultimate good of saving 6 billion people on Earth by killing 3 million is a worthwhile trade. It is a calculated sacrifice, and these are innocent lives. These are people who didn't make the choice to sacrifice their lives on the altar of world peace, but nonetheless, that's what this is. Ozymandias, his personal crusade, and he is able to achieve it, right? So is on that side. And then finally, you have Dr. Manhattan, who takes a somewhat neutral stance and says, well, I understand. He tells Ozymandias, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand your actions, without condemning nor condoning them. So he's saying, hey, look, I get it. You reasoned all of this out, and this is the conclusion you came to, and I'm not going to say I agree with it, but I'm also not going to say I'm condemning it. It's just like I get it. You ran whatever calculations you needed to in your mind. You justified this action and you executed it. And Dr. Manhattan, that answer, while somewhat neutral, still lands him on the side of, well, we're going to stay silent because world peace is still world peace, right? I keep thinking of that stupid basketball player, Ron Artest, right? Meta World Peace is his name. Meta World Peace. Like, you can't make that up, man. That's super funny. But anyway, so really interesting that you never really get Silk Spectre's viewpoint. She never really chimes in. She never really, that whole scene goes down and all the guys kind of have something to say, but she doesn't. She doesn't have anything to say. Why? Why is that? I don't understand. Like, that seems really weird to me. Wouldn't I would expect her to say something. I mean, it seems like I think the explanation there is she is just so devastated by the loss of life that she can't even really fully process. And you guys, feel free to correct me if you think that's not accurate. But that's kind of my take on it. She was pretty much the one focused on look at the destruction, look at all the people that died and sacrificed their lives here. So she was more on that. She was more kind of focused on that. Right? So let's see. I'll read some comments here. Both threats are based on an external threat based on a social psychology experiment. I mean, it's true that, we pull together in a crisis. It's funny. It's a funny thing that that was in our household. We pulled from the Ricky Gervais joke about Noah's Ark that, Carl, what's his name? I forget his last name, but his friend, his Asperger's friend, and he's always making fun of Carl, explained Noah's Ark by saying, we pulled together in a crisis, therefore lions and rabbits could live on an ark together and the lions wouldn't eat the rabbits. But, it's a similar concept. There's a crisis and let's put our differences aside and face this greater threat together because it is a common to all sides in this particular conflict. So it's sound. And in my opinion, the logic is sound that Ozymandias comes to this conclusion that, oh gosh, I got to paint a little freehand here. The little X symbol above her little boob. He comes to that conclusion and decides this is what he has to do in order to execute. And I'm just telling you guys, I struggle to find fault with that. I don't know. Maybe I'm a messed up person, but I think he did the right thing. Honestly, I do. And, maybe I'm a bad guy. I don't know. But I'll put it to you this way. In my opinion, oh man, I am never going to be able to pull this off, am I? It's just going to look awful. In my opinion, the real heroes, they make calls like that. The real heroes of the world, they don't take on the easy tasks. Like I was going to say that in the world of comic books, if you're a red and blue superhero, you never have to make the kind of decision that Ozymandias does. Okay? Let me explain. Like I said, a few that, and I was, saying this in like the hyper masculine mode because he's a young man, kind of grew up without and never really had the guidance and that kind of thing. And we were talking about a pretty sensitive subject. It's so sensitive, I'm not even going to discuss it here on the feed. But it's difficult. Like this is a decision that's so difficult that I would not want my worst enemy to be faced with such a decision. Okay, this is really like heavy shit here, guys. But anyways, and I was talking to my nephew about it. He's young and he's in his 20s. He's just, my opinion, just becoming a man. he has all sisters in his family, and dad is just not in the picture. He has to make this awful call, horrible call. And basically what I tell him is, it's stuff like this. This is what defines men. Believe it or not, this is what defines a hero, in my opinion, is the red and blue heroes. They can pull the cats out of trees. They can fight the bad guys. They can fight a clearly identified bad guy, right? Fighting Lex Luthor. Is there really a moral conflict there? No. Spider-Man fighting Green Goblin. Is there really a moral conflict there? No. It's a very simple choice to make. He's a bad guy. I'm a guy with powers. I can fight that, right? Let's try to simplify that in terms of Ozymandias. Ozymandias is the world's smartest human being. He's the world's smartest human being. And he is tasked, he is burdened with the knowledge that only his brain can bring about world peace in a state where the world is just so close to blowing itself up. So imagine being that guy, and you're the smartest person in the world. And let me tell you something, and this, please don't take this wrong. Actually, go ahead, take it however you want. But I grew up the smart kid in the class. I grew up a smart kid, right? Not saying I'm like whatever. And that's a very lonely journey when you're the smart person in the family, when you're the Malcolm in the middle, and your family is an average intelligence family, and they operate around that. And there are specific things that your family will encounter that they're not aware of. And you have to shoulder that burden by yourself, because no one will understand exactly what that is. No one will understand exactly what it is that you're facing and they're facing. And you have to make an awful call. You have to make a terrible call. And a call that most likely end up in some people misunderstanding and, probably being angry at you, maybe even hating you forever, right? But what do? What does a true hero do? A true hero does what has to be done, despite the negative consequences it will bear on him personally. That is how I regard this entire situation. A true hero, is defined by that decision. He's defined by that very decision to do something unpopular, something that will cause him, his own harm, or will harm some people to the benefit of a greater good or a greater amount of people, right? That's true heroism. True heroism is not rewarded. It's not, it's not like you're going to get a medal at the end of that for making such a horrible, heinous call. You will most likely go down in history as one of the most hated people for making that call. But consider that sometimes we are burdened to have to make that call. And I really feel that that's where Ozymandias was. I really feel that if you put yourself in his shoes, again, he is the only person in the world with that kind of brain to understand that if he doesn't do this, that Armageddon will happen, that 6 billion people will die, that the human race will be destroyed. And he has to, so he's burdened with this. He's burdened, and arguably tormented by it, that he has to do something because nobody else is going to do something, that other people are restrained by other things, be that their lack of intelligence or their moral, their moral standing, that they could not stomach such a decision. I could not stomach a decision like that. Me personally, like I couldn't. I could sit here and tell you guys, oh yeah, 3 million versus 6 billion. I will take 3 million dead any day of the week. Will I? I mean, will I have this? Would I actually have the constitution to do that? I don't know. Thing I would point out though that just seemed really strange is, and I'm sorry, I know I was just going to talk about the movie, but I know in the graphic novel, I haven't read it, but I do know that there's a panel where Ozymandias triumphantly raises his hands and says, "I did it," like he celebrates that. I don't buy that. And if that's true, if that's his real reaction, then that's evidence against Ozymandias being a hero. That's evidence against him being an altruist, because you would not celebrate that decision if you're the world's smartest man and you understand that maybe he was celebrating the fact that execution took place as he prescribed it to go. Maybe he's celebrating that, but you don't celebrate, if you're a real hero, really interested in saving humankind, you don't celebrate the fact that you had to kill 3 million people to save mankind. It just seems weird. But yeah, I don't know. I see a guy that was tormented by a decision that he felt he was alone in his ability to execute, went ahead and executed it. Incredible remorse afterwards, because it was like, I'm imagining the faces of every man, woman, and child that I just sent to their death. And in the movie, they do a slightly better job. Like he just, he's kind of going to sit there and rot in his decision, bringing himself to full understanding of what he's really done. So, I don't know. Did you get that heel heat for being the smart guy? Yeah, I mean, nobody likes a smart aleck, right? Nobody. That's a saying for a reason. Nobody likes somebody that has the answers, and sometimes you misuse those. Sometimes you correct people when they don't want to be corrected. Sometimes you things to people in their own interest, but they're so angry about whatever it is that you pointed out that they hate you, that they hate the messenger for pointing that out. So yeah, I would say that. I mean, I would say, yeah, I have felt some heat, or I've felt the ire of people for being the smart guy. I've blown a couple of grading curves in my day. And like I said, sometimes there are decisions, there are wars that you fight, secret little battles that you take part in that nobody else is really ever going to understand. That's wild. And so I kind of, I see Ozymandias as being that in the most hyper mode you could ever imagine. And seeing him burdened, I would buy more the idea that he would be burdened and tortured by that idea, that the idea that he has to kill 3 million people must drive a person near insanity, if not push him over the edge. Like, I would more if that was the ultimate fate of Ozymandias, that he just goes nuts because of what he did and they just lock him up or kill him because of it. Or, he is the world's smartest man. Maybe he probably had to run some sort of self-inventory to determine whether or not he could live with that decision afterwards. I mean, think about it. Like, this guy's plotting this entire thing for decades it's taken him to come up with this plot to save humanity. And don't you think if he's the only guy wrestling with the decision, and he knows that at the end of this, there are going to be 3 million innocent people murdered and the blood on his hands, wouldn't he run some sort of self-diagnostic beforehand? I know I would. I would say, could I stomach this decision? And again, looking at it from a raw, calculated perspective, it's not a decision for you. It's a mandate. Okay, let me correct myself and say that's not a decision for any logical person. You're not deciding whether or not to kill 3 million people to save humanity. That decision's already made. Of course you're going to do it. The question is with yourself after you do it, That's the question. So maybe if you wanted to bake more realism into this story, maybe Ozymandias, or Veidt, whatever you want to call him, Adrian, whatever you want to call him, maybe he had it baked in to where, maybe he explains the situation and, Manhattan kills him or something like that. Here's what you're saying. You're saying Dr. Manhattan equals not the hero the world wants, the hero it needs. Yeah, I know. And you hear that about Batman too, right? You hear that same kind of, not the hero you want, but the hero that the world needs. Well, I make that argument about Ozymandias. Definitely not the hero that the world wants or is even willing to call a hero. But in that particular situation, that particular doomsday clock situation, I would argue, he is the hero that the world needs. And he is a hero. Right? Even Manhattan or whatever else, you could argue it till the sun went down. But he understood the urgency of the situation. It's not like you can go, oh, well, if I killed 3 million people today, then 6 billion people would be saved. But it's, I don't have to do that till next Tuesday. Like he operated off of that decision because, as if it were an imminent threat. And everybody on that entire team considered it an imminent threat. So again, I can't find fault with what he's done. I can't roundly condemn what he did. I think a stronger version of myself would have done the same thing. But I think, if I doubted my own constitution, stomach, and live with that decision, then I would have baked in into the plan the idea that I get killed and that I die a disgraceful death, that I am the villain that gets murdered at the end. There is a question as to his motives, as if he's deluded by his motives. In the comics, he looks to guiding the world into a utopia. Yeah, that's, again, I feel the whole idea of a utopia, and again, I'm not the smartest dude in the world, but that guy is. We're assuming that's true, that he's the smartest dude in the world. So he's trying to take them into a much further phase where they go, where the world ends up being a utopia. I don't know. If we assume that he's correct because he is the smartest person in the world, whatever. That's what I say, whatever. To me, the principal thing there is that these people must die so that the world can continue to live. If it's these people must die so that I can have utopia, but ultimately they would have been cool, if they don't die, we're not going to get a nuclear holocaust, then okay, he's a bad guy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? His killing of the comedian is as much motivated by petty vengeance as by protecting the plan. So yeah, and it's cool too because justify to himself, he is the smartest human, but he's very, like you pointed out, he is still a human. He still has his own motivations. He still has his own desires, and he's still as flawed as everybody else is. So I think it's cool. But I love this idea. I love this idea that the heroes, that our romantic perception of what heroes are, is so greatly challenged by works like this. Not just Watchmen, but obviously it's one of the most prominent examples of, hey, what's going on, like these guys in the masks that quote unquote battle evil. Are you sure that they're good? Are you sure that they're doing the greatest good? Night Owl is like your typical, I'm just going to do good type thing. But is he really accomplishing anything by doing that? I don't know. I'm going to say on a small scale, sure. But on the grand scheme of things, probably not. I think that a person who is truly truthful and benevolent and just to the people around him, I think George R. R. Martin has a quote that a man who tells only the truth is a dangerous thing to the world. Like that's real, dude. That is some real shit he's saying right there, but it's true. I would say there's more to that quote than that, but that this man has no friends because this man has no friends, and he's considered a threat to the world. Tells only the truth. Oh man, but it's just it's so cool. That's why I had to paint the miniature. I had to do it. I had to I'm like, people who play Watchmen in the game or whatever. People talk about Watchmen. There's, Rorschach has a huge following. He's probably Rorschach in Manhattan. I'd say probably the most fan base within those heroes. I'm sure people like Comedian too, but there's not a lot of Ozzy fans. There's not a lot of, hey man, this guy he goes down as the bad guy, but he did something. He did something noteworthy, and I for one do think what he did was, can be considered a heroic act, heroic and heinous at the same time. But it's like, it's that difficult decision again. It's that difficult decision, in my opinion, what drives, true heroes. Being a hero should never be easy. Should never be easy. It should never be such a straightforward, oh, that guy's a good guy or that guy's the bad guy and I'm the good guy and I'm going to do the good guy thing and be the hero. To me, that's not a hero. That's just a guy doing, especially a superhero who has powers. So it's just a guy doing, honestly, what he is capable of doing. It's kind of like being let's like oversimplify the question here. I felt they all had flaws. Each had, yeah, for sure. And that's what made it cool too. The fact that everybody kind of had their flaws and their own reasons, and it was awesome. But let me ask you guys something, right? So a personal thing for me lately is I read a story about a Filipino police officer, father of two, suffering from a rare blood disease. And in order for him to live, he has to have a bone marrow donor, right? And to find a bone marrow donor, you need a match. Like you need somebody like related to you, or you need somebody who genetically is similar enough to you to where it's going to pose a minimal risk of rejection. So back in the days, if you're going to do a bone marrow transplant, like this was a significant investment for the donor as well as the recipient. Bone marrow, they would have to pull out a section of your I think they used to pull it from your femur or your hip bone, right? That's what they did. It was patient surgery. So when you agreed to being a bone marrow donor, that was kind of significant thing. Not so much these days, right? Now it's like they take a giant nasty needle and stick it in your hip bone, and they extract the. But it's not nearly as invasive as it once was, and so to make that decision back then was a much more difficult decision. I guess you could, without even having to use that example, because I'm not sure exactly how accurate I'm being here, but without even having to use that example, say that, being a kidney donor, that's pretty serious stuff, right? You still going under the knife, and there's still a recovery period and all this kind of stuff. But let's back it out all the way out and say, okay, if you donate a kidney to somebody that you don't know and you're not invested in, like it's not your own child or something like that, that makes you a little more altruistic, a little more quote unquote heroic, right? If it's as simple as a blood transfusion, like if you give a pint of blood, you have a pint of blood or whatever. That's altruistic, but it's an easier choice to make, right? I guess what I'm getting at is like that you could argue that, okay, that's like a more standard superhero decision, right? I'm type O negative, and it's a universal donor. I'm going to donate some blood, and I'm going to go on living my life. It's like there are no serious side effects. There's no real investment. You just got to sit there with a needle and squeeze a ball and have a candy bar and an orange juice afterwards, right? That's what I would consider on the scale of like, here's what like normal superhero folks are, what we expect of normal superheroes. We never really challenge them to make these really difficult decisions, and decisions like what Ozymandias had to do. And you can see this in some of Batman's stuff too. When you have to make the decision that results in you becoming the villain, like in my opinion, that's a deeply heroic thing. I don't know. Get it wrong? You guys have, I'm sure everybody has opinions, and I don't think Watchmen is written in such a way to say that, suggest that there really isn't a wrong answer here, that everybody is just going to interpret it, and like you said, it's hard to side with anyone. Yeah, it is. But I just think it's interesting, and I think, I don't know, that just really kind of grabbed me. Ozzy is just I think he's such a cool character. And I love the poem that he's based off of, the Ramses II and the Percy Shelley poem. I don't know. I was called Ozymandias by a friend of mine. She referred to me as Ozymandias because she said that that way. And I'm kind of perceived as villainous at times when I do stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of true. But yeah. So that character does kind of bear some importance to me. I do think he's a really cool character. But flawed. I think that I love that this is, in a lot of ways, Watchmen is just such a critical examination of the whole superhero genre, and I feel it's a bold questioning of what we have always just traditionally assumed was the deal with superheroes, masked superheroes, and presenting them in a different light. And I love anything that kind of challenges ideas that people just assume or take for granted. Back to the whole Star Wars thing, right? We're expected to walk into Star Wars and just assume that the rebels are good guys. I don't want to assume that the rebels are just good guys, right? I want to know a little bit more before I decide who I'm backing in that particular fight. I mean, it's clear to me that the Empire are bad guys, but it's not clear to me that the Rebellion are the good guys. That's all I'm saying. And with superheroes, I think it's good to look at that critically and go, is it a good thing that we superhero comics? It's like he's the good guy and he's the bad guy. And there's so many clear-cut examples of that in traditional superhero storytelling. Is that good though? Like, is that good for us in terms of, being growing, thinking human beings? Is it good for us to assume that, Rogue is a good guy and that, whoever, the Blob is a bad guy? I was thinking of the video game maybe, but I don't know. I just love to wrestle with that question, and I do think that when we celebrate superheroes and superheroic moments, it's kind of empty at times. It's like, and I'm just gonna make shit up here, but like, this thing happened, but luckily the Flash used his speed to make it not happen. What a hero! You're like, yeah, okay, it's a hero, but I mean, isn't that just the Flash doing what Flash do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, isn't that he's using what he has along moral grounds, and the whole, with great power comes great responsibility. I get that whole Stan Lee thing, but is that? I mean, that sure it's heroic, but talk real, like what I consider to be the most heroic stuff is the stuff that comes at your own peril. It's this sacrificial stuff. And in some ways, sacrificing your own life is less of a sacrifice than sacrificing your status as a quote unquote good guy or bad guy. You know what I mean? We were just talking. I just got finished talking about, hey, if I was the smartest dude in the world and this plan to kill 3 million people to save the human race, I would probably bake in the means by which I get to die, right? Because I don't want to live the rest of my life. Like, I'm too weak. I couldn't live the rest of my life knowing I killed 3 million people. And there would be a utopia around me, and I would understand that I was the cause, or at least a significant factor in bringing about that utopia. But man, I couldn't live with the guilt. I would have to have some way out. And, it's essentially suicide. And that's an easier sacrifice. Your life is for me, it's easier to sacrifice my life than it would be to continue living as someone who murdered 3 million people. You know what I mean? Flash makes some bad choices sometimes. I'm sure he does. I'm sure all superheroes do. But I think you guys get my point. Like that's, dude, like I was saying, like when I tell my nephew, like a man makes the most difficult decisions even at his own peril. He will make that call. And it's like, man, can you imagine like if you had to make a decision? I have two boys that I love more than any in the entire world. If you said, hey man, 3 million people have to die so that your two little boys can live, you know, I'd be like, hey, 3 million. Cause I'm just saying, like, anyways, if I had to make a decision, the people most precious to me, like my two sons, if I had to make a decision wherein they would hate me for the rest of my life, like that's awful. But I would have to do it because if I don't do it, you know, X number of people die, or they die, or something much worse happens, and but I have to paint myself as the bad guy. Like I have to take the bullet. I have to have these boys hate me for the rest of their lives and be convinced of nothing else, that I am, just the devil incarnate. I would make that call. In my opinion, a real hero would say, okay, these are, this is what's most precious to me in this entire world, and I'm gonna here at my feet, and I'm gonna I'm gonna just set myself on fire, right? Any parent would do that. Any parent, well, not any parent. I've seen a lot. You follow the news. There's some really disgusting parents out there, but the parents that I know, the parents that I know that are passionate about their kids, that give their whole lives for their kids. I'm sorry, she's done. By the way, yeah, we paint on this show occasionally. But yeah, any parent would be like, oh, well, if you don't set yourself on fire, your children die. They're lighting a match. My wife, who I love to pieces, she would do it. Somebody's gonna say your two boys are gonna die unless you set yourself on fire. She will set herself on fire. She will attack her worst fear, which is sharks. Her worst fear is sharks. My worst fear, zombies. Not the fast ones, the slow ones. Slow ones, slow child zombies just gnawing on you. Just not even sharp enough to really to do some real damage. They just sort of gum you to death, and so you die from being crushed by their gums, like your organs and stuff, your eyes and it's horrible. Like imagine that. So with that depressing thought, like I would run into a horde of them and just let them take me. If it was like it's that or your family, you know what I mean? Those are the decisions that heroes have to make. But it's worse than that in the case of some of these choices. It's worse than that. That fate is easier for me to accept, that my two sons would hate me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? You would just I would just cowardly find a way to kill myself or something. Like I couldn't live with that. Couldn't live with, and similarly, well, you kill 3 million innocent people. I couldn't live with that. Even if you're living in this utopia, there is no threat of people being harmed or countries being destroyed or genocide about to break out. Even after that, couldn't do it. So, anyways, like I said, that's why Ozymandias is fucking balls out, dude. And yeah, he's flawed, and I'm sure there's lots of ego and pettiness and all that other stuff associated with it. But man, taken from the angle at which I've spun it, he's balls, dude. Like he's like, yeah, I get it. So anyway, the comments have stopped. So I don't know. Maybe I've beaten this particular topic to death. But yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna go to bed. It's my birthday tomorrow, which is cool. That's another reason why I'm just gonna do this because I'm gonna be busy tomorrow doing some gaming. Actually, I'm excited for that. I actually gonna some games and try to enjoy my birthday. And then Friday during the day, if anybody's around, I don't know if you local guys, if you're around during the day Friday, I might actually be able to get in a game and or travel for said game. So, man, thanks, dude. Yeah, happy born day. Yeah, I always do some like weird. Uh, um, I do some like weird ceremonies every birthday. I do one of three things. Well, it's actually only one of two. Either like I stay up to midnight and I stay by myself and I kind of like just kind of mull over what I did and didn't do in the past year and evaluate myself as a shitty human being. So I either do that. Cooler thing that I do, and this is what I'm planning on doing, is I'm going to get up super early, get on my patio that's overlooking the city that I live in, and watch the sunrise. And it's really cool. I was kind of hoping, like, honestly, that was one of my goals for last year, because last year, my wife was she was what 4 or 5 months pregnant, and we were living in a place that I needed to get out of. Like we needed to, I recognized that we needed to get out of there. And on my birthday, my birthday last year, I did the ceremony thing, and I came to the conclusion that the following year I needed to be in a new home doing the same thing, and I'm gonna get to do it this year. It's really cool. So I'm fairly proud of that. Like I I really like busted some balls and made shit happen, um and I wasn't planning on having this really cool view to be able to do it. But the place that we ended up in, the place that we ended up buying, has a really cool view, and you get to see the city. So, um, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna pour myself uh, a box. That's a box full of my favorite sake, and sit out there and sip and watch the sunrise and think about what kind of disgusting human being I am, about child zombies gnawing on your organs, and how to kill 3 million innocent people and be okay with it. So, anyway, that's going to do it for this video. That's going to do it for this video. I'm going to try to get some sleep. I usually don't, though. That's the other thing. I usually don't sleep much, but I have a busy day tomorrow because I have to get up early. I'm going to take the boys to. That's the other thing that was cool too. Is I had this whole week off because my wife went back to work for a week. She went back to teaching for a week, and I was like, if you're going to go back to work, I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to get up every morning and be mom to my two boys, actually dad, and do cool boy things. So we took them. They've been to 2 zoos, and what else? Shoot, 2 zoos, SeaWorld, and an amusement park. And they're going to go to another one tomorrow because that's what that's what I'm doing this week. Is like I'm going to wake up and whatever my 3-year-old says. The other day he's like, "Daddy, I want to see sea creatures." So we took him to want to go to the big zoo. So he took him to the big zoo. Daddy, I want to go to the small zoo. Took him to the small zoo today. So we'll see what he says. I think tomorrow he's going to say, Daddy, I want to go to Knott's Berry Farm, and I'm going to take him there. So, anywho, give the self-rumination a miss and enjoy the celebration. All right, thanks, guys. So with that, we're going to call it to a close. Here is Rogue. I think she turned out okay. Little freehand there for the X. I think that's supposed to be an X. I don't know. she turned out okay. Again, nothing great. I wasn't a little disappointed in the casting again, but she looks okay. I don't know. Her face is kind of missing something. She's not, I don't know. Maybe she's not as cute as I think she should be. But I look at the studio art and there's the studio paint job, and she's not. She's kind of, I don't know. She's kind of boyish in that one. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank everybody for watching. Have a good night, guys. And again, thanks for the birthday wishes, and we'll catch you on the next one.